Previously on Spenelli Speaks.
Know you've been a good friend, and that's in the thick and thin, and I know it's never gonna end, 'cause you've been a good friend.
Hi everyone, Danny here. Welcome back to my channel. It has been a really long time, and I want to first and foremost thank everyone for being here. It has been such a blessing to hear from you all in private messages and comments on my live video that I recently put out, my Q&A. You all have been so supportive over the course of the last couple of months since I had my baby, and I just want to thank you. You all are so kind and sweet, and it's meant the world to me, so thank you so much. Today I thought I would catch everybody up on what I've been reading. I did talk a little bit about it in the live video, but for those of you who didn't want to sit through 2 hours of me talking nonstop, I'll reiterate a few of those things here and get my head around a few of the books that I absolutely did read. Like I mentioned in my live Q&A, I had a really hard time reading the last couple of months. For obvious reasons, but also in the hospital where I thought I was going to have all of this time to read, it actually was really hard to read while at the hospital. And I explained this in the live video too, but like, no one leaves you alone when you are in the ICU. It's constant. They wake you up, they stop by at all hours of the day. It's a little crazy. Anytime you try to take a little cat nap, someone's tapping you on your shoulder and wanting to talk to you about something. So it seemed like every time I tried to open a book, someone needed to talk to me about something, or I needed to pump, or I needed to feed the baby, or whatever it was, which those things are obviously, I'm ready for that. But anytime I thought I had maybe an hour to just sit in the chair and open a book, either A, I completely fell asleep, which is okay as well, or someone was coming in and wanting to talk to me. There was a few days where it was like a revolving door, like it was non-stop. It was crazy. So for the 21 days that I was in the hospital, I only got one book read during the month of April, essentially. And that book was This Tenderland by William Kent Krueger. Now, I know everyone has seen this all across booktube. It's been talked about a lot. And my review will be no different, really, than anyone else. It's an excellent read. I believe I gave it 4 stars. There is a live discussion on this book in my Double Booked Co channel, so the channel that Laura and I have for our business, where we have a book club. This was April's book pick, and we had a really great discussion. This book is about some children who escape it's like a Native American boarding school. This is based in the 1930s, and oddly enough, 3 of the children are white. There's only one Native American child that is with this, and it's for really weird reasons, basically money and whatnot, but the book gets more into it. Don't want to be too spoilery, but they escape because the people who run the school are just awful. There's a lot of, bad things happening there, and they essentially escape and try to make it to St. Louis, where the boy Odie has an aunt, and he is hoping that they can live with her as opposed to having to live at this basically a boarding school meant for Native American children. Now, this book, I will say, was very intriguing to me. I liked the way it was written. The landscapes were written really great. Being from the Midwest, all of it was very familiar to me. It really reminded me of John Steinbeck's East of Eden as far as how the language played out. Once you get to the end and you find out more about the purpose of this book, or what it's a retelling of, then I got really excited. The one thing I will say about this book that I really wish the author would have done better is the Native American voice. That story I don't feel was told very well. I feel like it was used as a plot pusher, and I don't feel like it was, I don't think it was written as well as it could have been. There is a character in here who is Native American. He's a Native American boy, and has his tongue cut out, so he can't speak. So he uses sign language to speak, and he is a fantastic character. Fantastic. You really fall in love with him, but he never takes fully the front of the stage. He's always on backstage. He's always in the back burner. The way that he's referred to a couple of different times, like he's a workhorse and all these kinds of things, I just feel like was a little derogatory. And I just wish that that story would have been told a little bit better. It felt like for a while that it was going to be the main part of the story, and I was really looking forward to that, but then it kind of wasn't. It just always took backstage, and even what ends up happening to that particular character was a little disappointing. So though it was a very good book, there was a piece of it that I felt should have just been out of it altogether, because it deserves its own story. But other than that, it is a very good read. I do look forward to moving on to some of his other books. I currently own Ordinary Grace, so I am looking to maybe read that one as well. So if you're looking for a good journey story or quest story, there's a particular word I don't want to use because it'll give away something else, this is a great read. It read really easy. If you have a Hoopla account with your library, they have this on audio for free on there, so definitely check that out. So that was the only book that I was able to finish in April. And then as May and June came around, I kind of finished a few books here and there. I can't quite remember what I finished when, so I'm just going to kind of go through all of the books that I know I've read, and then we'll talk a little bit about what I'm currently reading. So I know in May I read The Namesake, because this is May's Double Booked Co book club pick. Laura had picked this for her birthday month. This being July, I picked the book, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but I could have left this. I really kind of wish I would have DNF'd it, because this book really isn't about anything. It's just a story about a guy and his issues with his name. And I didn't feel like it was very compelling or exciting or anything. It just, the whole time I was reading it, I just felt like meh. And realistically, I think I got like halfway through, and then I downloaded Audible so that I could finish the rest of it on audio like at 3 speed, because I was so bored, but I wanted to finish it for book club. That's how boring I felt like this book was. So like I said, it's about a young boy. You first get the perspective of his parents when he's born, and they end up naming him Gogol after the Russian author, but as a nickname. It's not actually supposed to be his name, but it has huge significance. And he lives his whole life not even knowing why he has that name, and then they can't change it. They're waiting for a name from the grandmother or something, and then when he gets old enough, he actually changes his name, and then later on he like regrets it. I've given you the whole story. That's what the story's about. That's it. And then everything that happens in between. I was not impressed. Now the writing, I will tell you, is great. I think she's a great writer. The language is very well put together, but overall, as far as when you're trying to pick a book that you're going to be excited about, this is not it. So I read that in May. Then in June, for that same book club, we'll just keep on the book club books, we had picked Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer, and I DNF'd this book. Now, I did not DNF this book because it wasn't good. If you're interested in a book about trauma, associated with like 9/11 and World War II, has dual timelines. It has mixed media here, different formatting styles. Then definitely pick this one up. I think that this book was just not for me. I definitely think it is well written and an interesting read to those who are interested in that kind of book. This is not a book about 9/11. It just so happens that the character, the little boy character who narrates the present time, his father had passed in 9/11. So that's really the only reference to 9/11. So if you're afraid because this is a book about 9/11, it's not. The dual timeline is we have the boy, Oscar, who's 9, narrating present day. And then you have like letters from his grandmother and grandfather back in the 40s to 50s surrounding World War II. So you have different elements of trauma in the same family and how they're dealing with it. And he's kind of like on this journey looking for things that his dad had. So he's looking for someone who owns this particular key that he found. So he's he's traipsing all around New York, and to me that just didn't seem realistic. But anywho, so it didn't grip me. I ended up DNFing it like halfway through, and I'll be unhauling it as well. It's just not the book for me, but it could be a book for you if you're interested. So I'm not gonna poo-poo it because, again, every book has their reader. Obviously, it's published, so somebody likes it, right? Surprisingly, I was able to finish Kristin Lainstatter. You know, I've been talking about this for a daggum year. I was supposed to finish this book back in August. It is almost August of this year. It almost took me a year to finish this book. And I know when I was talking about having to finish it, I kept saying, oh, this is redundant. The same things keep happening. But let me tell you, once I was finished, it all came together so nicely. I keep thinking about this book. If you're interested in a medieval telling of a family saga, like an epic saga, this is definitely the trilogy for you. I really enjoyed this book. And the way it ends is so fitting for the story. It just, her whole life comes to this moment, and it was perfect. It was sad, but it was perfect. And yeah, I still hate Erland, which is her husband. I was very happy with what happened with that situation. Just wish it would have happened like 3 books ago. But I really did like this saga. I will be keeping this, and who knows, maybe 20 years from now, I may reread it. It may take a few years to do so, but I definitely enjoyed this. So I did finish that saga, which was fantastic. As far as other books that I finished, I'm pretty sure the rest are all audiobooks. So I'm just going to pull up my Goodreads here and then my Hoopla. I did download on my Hoopla account. If you recall, last year I read all of Penny Reid's Beard books. So like they're all about these brothers, and they're like romance novels. Really good. Loved them. And I'm going to try to get into, there's a spin-off series that's more of like a cozy mystery series with Cletus. He's my favorite of the brothers. So I'm going to start reading that on audiobook. But I downloaded a Beardy bonus, which is like some deleted scenes. I think there are stories that she had like published in like magazines or something, because it was so disjointed. Half the time I didn't even know who was narrating the scene. I didn't know who the person was. By the time I got to the middle of the story, I was like, oh, this is Ashley's point of view. Did we have a book from Ashley? I don't even remember when this is from. It was very hard to like follow. I did not enjoy it. I thought it was a waste of my time. So I definitely did not like that. I don't think it's necessary. So if you're like, oh, Beardy bonus, I mean, it's only, I read it on double speed, so it was like an hour and a half of my life, but I just didn't feel like it was necessary. So I did read that. I also started the Bridgerton series, so I absolutely love the show. I like the first season way more than the second season, although the second season is great as well. But I decided I would read the books. I kind of want to know, like, where did this come from? I've read the first two. So the first one is The Duke and I, and then the second one I think is The Viscount Who Loved Me or something like that. 2 stars for both of them. I wasn't really entertained. I thought that they were very boring, and I feel like both stories were identical, just with different people. Like, the reasons why things happened were identical. Now, I will say that the second book was nothing like the show. The show went a completely different way, which I felt was way more compelling, way more exciting. You really liked the characters a lot more. There was more at stake in the show. In the book, it was kind of just like, that's it. Like, how did these books get made into a show? Why would you pick these books? Like, they're not that great. Anywho, I am going to continue, and I'll get into that a little bit later. I also read on audio The English Wife by Lauren Willig. If you recall, last year, Laura and I, for our year-long buddy read, we read the Pink Carnation series by Lauren Willig. So when I saw The English Wife, which is just, I think it's a standalone, I was like, oh, let's read this. And it's a lot different than the Carnation series, and I liked it. There were some parts where I felt like it went on a little long, but it was really interesting. It opens in the prologue with someone being murdered and someone disappearing. And then when the book starts, it's dual timeline. And the timeline intersects towards the very end. And what it does is it follows the main character, which I've already forgotten her name, and her brother is the one that gets murdered in the prologue. So she's trying to find out who murdered her brother. And this is in like the late 1800s London. And she is like trying to figure it out. She has a terrible mother who like doesn't really believe in her and like only talks about the brother. And then in the dual timeline, it's like 5 years previous, and it's the brother's wife. And the brother's wife is who disappeared in the prologue. So the thought is that she killed the brother and then left. So you have her story of like how they met and all this kind of stuff, and then that slowly comes into the other timeline. It's really good, and the whole time you're trying to figure out who the murderer might be, because the person that you're supposed to think is the murderer, you're like getting their perspective, so sometimes you're like, I don't really think that they did it. And I thought it was really great. I did really enjoy it. I gave it 3 stars because, like I said, it did go a little bit long in some places, and there was a real big chunk where I was like really bored, and I like was trying to like get through it faster. But then by the time you get to the end where it's all coming out, then you're like, oh my God, this is so exciting. So I definitely liked that. I don't know. I don't think it's a series. I think it was a standalone, but it's pretty good. Then a nonfiction read that I listened to on audio was Paul Freedman's American Cuisine and How It Got This Way, which was really interesting. If you at all are interested in American cuisine in its regions, like the regional cuisine, it was really fascinating. And he goes through like how things came to be, where they came, like if they came from different countries, different people, because we are known as the melting pot, right? So he kind of goes into all of that and why it became that way. And there were so many things that I didn't know, but also there were so many things that I did know. So it was cool to hear things be like, oh, I recognize that. And then to learn a little bit more. I'm obsessed with the show Food That Built America. So a lot of the things that he was talking about, I had known from that show, and then he was able to develop on them a little bit more. It was really great. I would say the only thing with the audiobook that I didn't really like was he lists foods at either the beginning or the end of a chapter, and it's just like a list. And for me, if I was reading, I would just scan that real quick and then skip to the next page. But it was like mashed potatoes, cornbread, sauerkraut. It was just like, this is hard to listen to because you're not really focused at that point. So that was the only thing that I was like, I don't like this on audio. But the rest of it was really fascinating. I really did enjoy that book. So as far as books read, I think that's it. I really do. So as far as what I'm currently reading, let me just open up my Hoopla and make sure that I didn't miss anything else. But, you know, my age-old, how long is it going to take for you to read these books, Danny? I do still have The Eye of the World, which I literally have not touched since the last time I told you about it. And then The Other Boleyn Girl, which I have touched. I'm at the halfway point now, and this book is so hard to, like, it's not hard to read, but for me, it's so hard to keep going back to because it's absolutely fantastic. I love reading this book, but I think because it's so big, every time I feel like, oh, I should read that book, I'm just like, oh, but I'm never going to finish it. So I have this like, you know, feeling towards it. But every time I open it up and I do get some moments to read it, it's so good. It is so good. So I'm at the part where Anne has still not gotten Henry to marry her. But it's getting close. They're trying to get it where he can divorce Catherine. And it just keeps going back and forth. And Anne is terrible. I hate her in this book. But we have to remember that this is fictional and we don't know that that's the case. But I really do like Mary's perspective. At first, I didn't think I really liked her all that much. But now as she's aged and she's matured and you can tell that she really understands the situation better, I really do like her. I do feel bad for her. And I'm just kind of wondering how this is going to end. And still trying to remind myself that this is fiction. So I definitely want to get into some nonfiction of Henry VIII because it's just, this whole story is so fascinating. But I do need to finish that at some point in my life. And so looking at my Hoopla, it does look like I was able to tell you everything that I was on there. Yeah. Yep. So other books that I am currently reading with Double Booked Co. In July, we are reading Jenny Colgan's Welcome to Rosie Hopkins' Sweet Shop of Dreams. This is the UK edition, so if you're looking to read this for like a US edition, I think it's just Sweet Shop of Dreams. But this is our Double Booked Co. July pick. This is what I picked for my birthday month. So we didn't vote on a book this month, but I picked this because I've never read Jenny Colgan before and I've really wanted to. So we're starting this. I'm not very far in. We had some reading sprints the other night, but I didn't get very far. I'm on page 20. But so far so good. I do enjoy it. It has dual timeline. I love dual timelines. And so far, the main character, Rosie, is pretty interesting. She is a nurse, but for like a temp agency, so she doesn't really have like a full-time job. She kind of goes to different places. But where I'm at, she is ended up going to meet this woman named Lillian, which I'm assuming that this Lillian owns a sweet shop because I have gotten one dose of Lillian's dual timeline, but it's from the 40s, and I believe she's in a sweet shop. So I think that's what we're gonna see is Rosie visiting with Lillian. I don't know how they're related. I don't know if they're like actually kin or if they just know each other somehow, but yeah, so I'm excited to read that. I'm still trying to read A People's Tragedy with Christy Lewis over at Dostoevsky in Space. I'm not very far. I think she thinks I'm really far and I'm not very far. I even made like, oh, I want to get all of this read by my birthday because that would get me caught up for July, which would still make me behind. But yeah, that being said, this is super interesting. And I know with everything that's going on with Russia and Ukraine right now, which is tragic, and I don't even want to talk about it because it'll make me cry. It's absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous isn't even the word. Ludicrous isn't even the word. It's a tragedy. But A People's Tragedy, this is talking about the people of Russia when their leaders are downright fools. So obviously we start off with this, it's the Russian Revolution 1891 to 1924. This is basically the end of Tsarism, and we get a look into Tsar Alexander, or Tsar Nicholas, excuse me. Alexander is his son, but Alexander was the Tsar before Nicholas. So it's all the Tsars. So the end of a dynasty, essentially, getting into the Bolsheviks and the revolution. And so right now I'm still kind of in where the nobility is starting to crumble, serfdom is starting to crumble, and the serfs or peasants are starting to own land, and how that's kind of shifting things. So we're getting very close to our revolution, and it's a very fascinating read. This is a textbook, mind you. This is definitely a textbook, but it is still very, very interesting. So I'm excited that we're reading this. I just really need to get my tail in gear and get these pages read. So that's something I'm working on. Another year-long read is with Laura at Book Bubbler. We're reading Arum, and I'm not quite sure if we're actually reading Arum, because I'm thinking that Laura hasn't even started yet, and I'm only in like 3 chapters, so we're like really far behind. So my guess is, and if she's watching this, she'll probably agree, we might just hold and start that next year, because this year we started Double Book Co's book club, so we've really been reading together all year anyways, but with that, that's something new. So I think what we'll probably do is hold Arum and start that next year, knowing that that's how we kind of have to balance everything. So I'm not going to worry about that for right now. I'm going to kind of like table it, and maybe we'll come back to it next year, because as you know, we love Edward Rutherford. He has fantastic writing, and we love everything he does. So we'll definitely come back to it, but I don't think it's going to happen this year. I also, on a car trip going to the lake for 4th of July, picked up Tim O'Brien's July, because I was like, hey, let's start a book July. Did not realize how fascinating this read was going to be. So this is dual timeline, but it starts with a class reunion. It's a 20-year class reunion, and everyone's kind of like talking to one another and all these different things, and it might even be more than 20 years. I'm not sure. I can't remember, but oh, it's a 20-year college reunion, and there's these 2 women that are talking, and then all of a sudden they're like talking about how this one woman was murdered, and it's just like her to get herself murdered, and then they don't talk about it anymore, and then it like switches to other people. So you're getting the one timeline of the class reunion, and then when it switches timelines, you get a dose of like each one of the people from the reunion. So one of the timelines that I read, it was one of the men, and he was in Vietnam. So you're getting his perspective of like this really horrible shooting, and he loses his leg. And then we get another timeline of one of the women and like what she did after college. And so I'm really interested in this. I set it down. It's like almost mid-month. I need to pick it back up because it's a really slim read, and I definitely could finish it. It's really interesting. If you've ever read Tim O'Brien, he wrote The Things They Carried, which is a wartime book. This is excellent. I definitely would recommend picking this up. I think this is a pretty old read. Looks like 2002. So it's literally 20 years old. But it's, I'm not very far in. I don't even have a bookmark in here. I think I'm like 50 pages in, and I really like it. So I got to get on this because it's slim and I can finish it. Other than that, on the physical reads, I don't think I have any other physical books going. But as far as audio books go, I am reading the 3rd in the Bridgerton series, which again, if you remember, I rated the first 2 stars because they're not very good. I didn't really like them. But I think that is also because, well, 1, I think their stories were lame, but 2, I have the Bridgerton show like stuck in my head, and it's like so different, and the show is so good, and comparatively it's like, oh, those are kind of crap. but I'm going to give it a chance because the next couple books, they may be better. I don't know. So I am listening to the third one right now, which is called An Offer from a Gentleman. And this is Benedict's story. The first, as you know, is Daphne's story. The second is Antony's story. And now this is Benedict's story. And I can tell you, it looks like I'm like 10% in. And I'm already liking this one way more than all the other ones. It's definitely a Cinderella retelling. Very much so. Like, very much so. A Cinderella retelling. And I'm liking it so far. You have Benedict and then Sophie. Sophie is a bastard child of an earl. The earl died. There's a stepmother with two stepdaughters. You know how the story goes. And she shows up to a masquerade and meets with Benedict. They share a kiss, and then obviously when the bell tolls at midnight, she has to disappear. So I'm to that point. So yeah, Cinderella. And we'll see what happens in the rest of the book. So I have that. I am also reading on ebook because it's easy to hold my phone and read an ebook while I'm bouncing baby. I'm reading the second in the Troublesome Creek series. So that's The Bookwoman's Daughter by, what is that, Kim Michelle Richardson. I read the first one, was it last year or the year before, with Rainy at Rainy Day Reads. We read The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek, which is really good. I really liked that. And then this is the second book, The Bookwoman's Daughter. And I totally forgot about this book until I saw it on Sarah's channel. Sarah has a channel, The Bookish Knitter, and she was talking about maybe reading that, and I was like, oh yeah. And I was going to read it in audio because I read the first one in audio, and they didn't have it on audiobook, but they had it in ebook. But that works out perfectly because, again, I have to hold it while I'm bouncing baby G. So that, so far, I think I'm like 15% in. I'm really liking it. And what I really like about this series, or I don't know if it's a series, it'll just be a duology, but you're completely re-immersed into this, you know, Appalachia, this mountain area with these people, and I love that. When a book can do that, when you, even though it's been like 2 years since you read the first one, when you read the first couple lines, you're just back there. You're just back in that state of mind, back with those people. I really like it. I'm really excited that I'm reading this again. And even reading it in a different format, still feeling that immersion is just perfect. I'm so excited. So again, I'm only about 15% into that, so I am reading that as well. Past that, I don't think I'm reading anything else. I've been kind of mood reading. Other than the books that I'm buddy reading, which is only really the two, I'm just kind of picking up books as I can. I'm trying not to make myself read anything, although, you know, my books that I'm supposed to read in 2022 are still all back here. So I need to start mood reading from here. Otherwise, they're never going to get read. And there are several of them that are on audio that I can get on audio. So I think I'm going to try to find those and read those on audiobook so that I can get them done, because I'd be very sad if none of these books get read. I picked them all specifically to read this year, and then look what happens. Ay. Okay, so I've rambled on for far too long. As you can tell, my voice is already like starting to clog up. But I wanted to update you all on what I've read and what I will be reading. Let me know, have you read any of these books? Are you reading any of these books? Are you reading with us with Double Booked Co? If you're interested in joining Double Booked Co, just let me know. We have a Voxer group, but we also do everything on our YouTube channel, which is all going to be linked below. So feel free to join us at any time. We do currently have our votes in for our August books, which I actually have right here. So if you're interested, you can vote on those. So in August, we have selections of The Space Between Us, which is by 3T Umrigar. This is about a woman in India. It looks like it's comparing lives. I don't know. Space Between Us, yeah. Empathy and compassion are invoked by both strong women, each of whom is forced to make separate choice. Okay, so you have that one you can pick. Then we have Leanne Moriarty's Big Little Lies, which, as you know, I've read a lot of, or not a lot, but a couple of Leanne Moriarty's, and they're always excellent. So we have this one to select for August. And if you don't know what this is about, which this has been all over everywhere, it says a murder, a tragic accident, or just parents behaving badly. What's indisputable is that someone is dead. So we have that one. And then lastly, we have a Catherine Coulter book. Now this is called The Beginning. This edition holds the first two novels. We're actually only going to read The Cove, which is the first in this series. This is like an FBI series, so we're just going to start with The Cove. So you can select Catherine Coulter's The Cove, Big Little Lies, or The Space Between Us. So that is for August. So if you're seeing this and it's before July 23rd, you should be able to vote in a poll on my community tab, a poll in Laura's community tab, and then on the new release video from the 10th of July on Double Booked Co's channel. And that's for the August book club pick. I have a feeling it's going to be Big Little Lies, but I don't know. I haven't been wrong yet. I'm pretty good at figuring out what people are going to pick, and it's usually a book that has a corresponding film or TV series. That's just what's happening, people. Can't fault me. I've been watching the polls, and Laura and I don't vote, so just saying. But okay, like I said, I've been rambling on way too long. You're probably all super tired. If you've made it this long, you are so amazing. Thank you for watching. I do appreciate each and every one of you. I love you so much. You've all been so supportive of me, and I hope that in some way I'm supportive of you. So yeah, let me know about the books and what you think, and or if there's something else that you're reading. I'd love to hear in the comments and chat back with you. But until next time, I hope you all are reading something great, taking care, and staying safe. And until then, happy reading. Bye.